At that point, were you feeling like financially stable?
I mean, I was making $50K. We had one kid at the time, and our expenses were pretty low. I had some equity in the house that I was fortunate to purchase. I wasn't saving as much as I wanted to.
I always say this, I play basketball with Jordan a lot, and Jordan is one of the most competitive people. Did you feel like you're, in that sense, competitive enough to be like one of the best restaurants?
What does it mean to be at the best restaurant? It's so
or
subjective.
Can you create the best restaurant?
But right, can you create, it was more about just trying to be the best that I could be with those skills. That's what I liked. I guess that's what drew it to me, is that constant pressure to keep creating and keep every day producing something.
Yeah.
You only can serve so many perfectly cooked pieces of beef or salmon before it's
yeah,
I like this, but do I need to be doing this 7 days a week, 5-6 days a week?
Hey guys, welcome to episode 53 of the Realized Gains podcast. I'm Steven Tran. I am a multifamily investor and short-term rental investor, and I'm also an Oregon and Washington realtor.
And I'm your co-host, Jordan Lee here. I'm a mortgage lender licensed in about 9 states, based here in Portland, Oregon, and I mostly invest in single family.
Yeah, and today, I just wanted to do an episode with just Jordan. We get a lot of questions about, where we come from.
Career change. How do you change your careers?
Change your career. How did you get into real estate? I don't know how to get started.
Yeah.
You had this good luck thing that happened to you, and you had all the right steps to get there. And what I really want to tell people is absolutely not. We did not have the perfect journey to get there. And I know we went into a little bit of detail about our past careers and the journeys we took, whether it's personal or professional. To eventually get here. But I just want to emphasize to everyone that, the journey, all the experiences that we learned from our journey professionally, personally, with family, etc., is what got us here. And then we just kind of put ourselves to be open to learn, and, things really snowballed quickly.
And I think the great thing about real estate is that you can use, in that real estate profession, you can use your previous experience in a lot of different ways. You wouldn't think, oh, I used to cook. That's a skill that translates to real estate. But there is parts of cooking that translate really well, attention to detail, creativity, client service, making sure that your work is very consistent.
Yeah.
All those things translate really well. Whereas, Steven used to be in marketing, which to me, that's a natural transition, but again, it could be any skill set that could come over, because real estate's so broad and there's so many different ways of doing it.
Yeah, like I said, did you ever imagine you'd be a lender when you were 18 years old at this point in your life?
I didn't. Well, first of all, I didn't know what a lender was, or at that time, or really what a mortgage was. Loan officer wasn't one of those careers. I had some vague concept of what a realtor was, I think, when I was in high school, but I think I thought I was going to be more in the medical profession. Most was kind of what I had originally planned on, but
yeah, something exciting. I was going to be a firefighter or a skydiver or something crazy. When you're young, nobody thinks I'm going to be a realtor and I'm going to do something that's kind of mundane. I don't know. I'm not saying that lending is mundane, but it just doesn't scream passion job.
Right, yeah. And ultimately, for kids too that are tuning in, listening, and thinking about their careers, you might be preparing for a career that doesn't exist yet. Ultimately, life is about building skills and being able to make change and meet the need and the niche. Who knows what careers are going to be there in the next 10, 15 years? Piloting drones, was that some career that we were training for in high school? No. Are high school kids doing that now? Yes.
Yeah, content creator, like every kid wants to be right now. But yeah, why don't you just kind of start with that thought process at 18 and, kind of how you got into your career and what your thought process was then, before obviously anything real estate related, anything lending related?
Sure. That's a good point. At 18, I honestly was I'm going to go to college. I don't know exactly what I'm going to major in, but I'm probably going to be doing something biology related.
Yeah.
So I went to college, put in for intro to biology, and it was full. so my what is it called? The guidance counselor. I can't remember what it's. Your major advisor. You have some advisor. I think it's just an advisor at school. Was like, well, why don't you try a language? And I was like, okay. I liked French in high school, but it wasn't my favorite. So I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try Chinese. I'm half Chinese. Maybe I should learn about my culture. So then I changed, pivoted, went and studied Chinese, which had nothing to do with biology. And then I also randomly read the description of an anthropology class, which I'd never heard of that field before. So I decided to major in those two things, neither of which were automatic career paths, I don't think. I mean, I certainly there's plenty of anthropological research and archaeological research that's been done in China that hasn't been translated into English that could be useful. But I think I learned pretty early on that academia wasn't going to be something for me. And I'd had professors sort of tell me like, hey, Jordan, like, academia is not for everyone. I got through college, but it was a challenge, and I think that constant research, and it just is not super stimulating for me. I love learning and reading, but that higher level like journal and comparative analysis stuff for me is just a little bit. I get sleepy.
So I mean, I know you did some study abroad. Was that all like through your anthropology classes?
Well, I did it. Yeah, I did an archaeological dig in Arizona one semester, like one summer. But my study abroad was more for Chinese.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I was like, okay, maybe my junior or senior year in college, I was like, I think I love cooking. I think maybe I want to open a restaurant. And so I designed like a kind of like a senior thesis type project where I took an internship at a local kind of fine dining restaurant that was there in that small town. And the owner, he was like, well, I'm going to disabuse you of this idea that you want to own a restaurant. It's a terrible idea. Why don't you go collate my bills for 2 hours? And so I kind of like, he showed me, which was cool. He showed me kind of top to bottom, like, here's what it's like to run a small restaurant has some modicum of success in a small town. I saw the front of the house, I saw the back of the house, and as well as like the business side. And it didn't completely at that time disabuse me of that notion. And so, after college, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go to culinary school. I think I want to open a restaurant. And then I started working in that field.
Nice. And I mean, you want to kind of get into like just once you finish culinary school, like what your experience was going from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think cooking for most people is a passion because, it starts typically... At least in that time, I was working. I started at $11 an hour, which is maybe minimum in Oregon at that time was like $9. Mm-hmm. And I was working at widely considered one of a James Beard Award restaurant at Paley's Place, one of the top restaurants in the Northwest. So you would think the pay would be great, but no. I mean, you start at the bottom, you get $11 an hour. I worked there for 3.5 years. When I left, I was making maybe $13. Until I took a chef position at another restaurant in town, which was good. Like I mean, it was like I said, it was very much a passion, and a lot of like the culture and mentality is like, oh, I gotta work the most hours, I gotta shuck the most oysters, I
was gonna ask, were they? I mean, I'll use some language. Were you doing like bitch work?
I mean, I think you to a certain extent you always are. I mean, I didn't start like washing dishes because I went to culinary school, so I did start on the line. So I wasn't on the lowest position. I started at a pantry position, and I also did prep work too, which was like, cooking family meal and then just like prepping for all the stations, which I that's not really like the entry level position. You actually have to. I mean, you have to have this. You have to know all the recipes to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, was your expectation you're gonna go in and like just like have a nice pan and like do all the steaks and all the what do you call it, were you
basting
all this stuff and doing all this amazing cool...
and I mean when you get to that level when you're working, I mean, so in that kitchen there was really there was really 3 line positions. There's the cold line pantry, which sometimes had 2 people, and then there's the hot line, there's meat, fish, and then expo. And like, so there's not there's not a ton of verticality. B, there's not any real major pay discrepancy. Like, you know, one position doesn't necessarily get paid significantly more than another. Then there's like a sous chef and a chef. And yeah, I mean, for me, I was like, I love cooking. I want to learn how to cook. I want to learn how to cook everything. I want to be, you know, I want to be, you know, as skilled as everyone that I'm working with, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, yeah, this mentality of like building skills, but then there's not a lot of thought on building the business acuity, like learning how to successfully run a business, like learning the numbers. You know, you don't learn about like, oh, how a lease works, or how you might learn a little bit about food costs, and of course you're trying to monitor that with your ordering, but the bigger picture is still kind of hidden from you. And I think, you know, once I got to the point where, okay, how do I grow beyond just building skills and actually trying to build a business or wealth that way? I think that's when I like peeled back that curtain and started talking to business consultants and like looking at what it would take to own a restaurant and what the risk versus the reward was, at least in the fine dining atmosphere. That's when I kind of like took a step aside and was like, well, this is a passion for me. Is this a career? Like, is this the right career?
At that point, were you feeling like financially stable? Were you like, you need to get past that like $11 to $13 range, and you were like feeling like, okay, I can live off of this?
I mean, I was making $50K. We had 1 kid at the time, and like, you know, our expenses were pretty low. Like I you know, at that time we were okay. I was like, I had saved, I think I had 10 or 12 grand or something like that, and I was like, all right, like, you know, savings are good. I had some equity in the house that I was fortunate to purchase because I had an inheritance from a grandma that passed, and yeah, I felt like I could make a risk. So I felt fairly stable, but I didn't feel like, I guess I knew that stable wasn't enough, right? Yeah. I wasn't saving as much as I wanted to.
And, you know, I will say this, I play basketball with Jordan a lot, and Jordan is one of the most competitive people. Did you feel like you're, in that sense, competitive enough to be like one of the best restaurants?
Yeah, and that term is just so hard, like, because what does it mean to be at the best restaurant? Like, it's so subjective.
Like, can you create the best restaurant?
But right, can you create, like, I don't know, like, for me, again, it was like, it was so much more. It was more about just like trying to be the best that I could be with those skills. Like, that's what I liked. I guess that's what drew it to me, is like that constant pressure to like keep creating and keep every day producing something.
Yeah.
It's a lot. There's a lot of constant demand and pressure, which is satisfying to a certain extent. I think I got to the saturation point of that satisfaction. Like, you only can serve so many perfectly cooked pieces of beef or salmon before it's like,
yeah,
I like this, but do I need to be doing this 7 days a week? You know, 5-6 days a week.
Yeah, I mean, did you, when you were thinking about your restaurant concept, I mean, was it something you were super excited about and trying to be creative and trying to like, I'm going to do something different, or where was the point where you're just like, you know what, this is just not it?
Well, yeah, so when I was working the chef position, we were creating the menu, which was really fun, right? Because we'd go to the farmer's market every week, and we'd be like, okay, here's what are we going to do with this? But there's still always that day-to-day grind that you can't really get out of. And so when I was looking at buying the restaurant, and it was like, okay, yeah, we can set up the menu, we can do this, and we can do that. But there's still, when I looked at the back end, when I looked at the money portion, it gave me pause, because I didn't feel like there was a lot of security there.
Yeah. No, it's funny because you talking about going to the farmer's market and doing all the stuff in the French Brigade, and I kind of love chef culture, and I know you obviously absolutely hate it, but I watch a lot of shows on that. I think I have like obviously like some kind of dream about like.
No, I mean that's why a lot of people get into the industry. I mean, they read Anthony Bourdain's book and they get super excited about it. They love the hustle and the speed and the heat. and it's very practical skill set. But yeah, I mean, for me, from a business sense, it just wasn't the business that I saw thriving, and I think that's a reason why a lot of restaurants, especially in the fine dining space, it's a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, obviously you did your research, you've had your consultants come in and kind of tell you like this might not be as good as you would think financially, or you might not achieve the success that you'd like unless you're that top 1%. I mean, what was your thought process like immediately after that? Obviously, this seems like maybe not the future for you.
Yeah, I mean, good point. Like, for me, for a while, I was just kind of like in a funk. Like, I was like, I don't know. And then I started reading books mostly, whatever, motivational books, self-help books, reading about different fields. And then I thought about like other things that I knew and like I'd always liked math, and I had a long-term plan of building like wealth through, or not really necessarily wealth, but building passive income and kind of like building a retirement account, I guess, through real estate. And so that's kind of what drew me to the finance world. So that's kind of where I was like, okay, finance. I think I like finance. I like talking about finance. I mean, finance is weird because it's like such a broad thing, and the actual mechanics of like setting up a mortgage or, setting up a Roth IRA or, like doing those things aren't necessarily fun, but more the long term and end result is what is enjoyable about it, and helping people kind of switch that light bulb of like. It's like the question of if you put $400 a month into an account over 40 years and you're getting 10% compound interest, is that gonna? How much is that gonna make you? And the person's like, oh, I don't know, like a couple $100,000, right? Because that's, if you do the math, that's what you would think it'd make. No, actually, it's like 2.5 million. And then it's like, or it's like, what would happen if you pay up, you have this rental property that starts at this and over 30 years it increases by 3% each year. So I think, yeah, it's kind of the opposite of cooking. Whereas like cooking, the mechanics of it are a lot of fun. The day-to-day, there's a lot of fun. But like the long-term return on it of the business and the long-term return on your health, I mean, that's the other reason I kind of like started to avoid that. Is if you read studies about chefs that they've done, it's their life expectancy is like something like 8 years less. So I think the long term of cooking is pretty. That's sort of what drew me to finance. Is like I traded the short term for the long term, I guess. Whereas like the short term fun versus the lack of long term to a field of finance, whereas some of the short-term stuff is annoying, but the long-term planning, the creativity, that part is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And I mean, obviously you've built a pretty good career as something that obviously there's no promises in terms of how much money you're making. How did you get over that hump?
Yeah, I said I saved like $10,000 or $12,000, and I was like, oh, that'll be plenty, right? That'll be enough time for me to like build a business. Honestly, like that, there's, so much of it, like hard work is super important, right? Being consistent, paying attention to detail is super important. Like in our career, a lot of what we do is almost like fishing, you've got to be constantly doing the work, showing up. And a lot of times you do the work and you don't get any sort of compensation for it. Yeah. Just like when you're thrown in a line, a lot of times you lose your weight or your lure. Yeah. You got to pay for that, right? And you don't get a fish. You might spend hours and days in doing it. Same thing in real estate. So for me, intentionally, I just set it up in a way that I was like, okay, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to meet people. And I'm going to keep doing that as many times a week as I can. Until I've met enough people that they'll think about me when they need a mortgage done. And it's, again, another long-term strategy, but eventually it did pay off. And plus it kind of taps in. Speaking of the short term games versus long term games, it did that part of the business. I did like a lot. So like spending time with people, making new friends, building new relationships, building new partnerships. To me, that part is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of helped. That's the part of real estate that kind of drew me and helped me make it push through that first couple of years where it's like, you're just doing a few deals here and there and hoping to get by. I mean, I didn't think I was going to be able to make it. I didn't realize that I was going to make a full career out of it until I think the third year 3, I made as much as I did cooking.
So roughly 50.
Yeah, roughly 50K. So it took 3 full years to get to that point where it felt like, okay, I can pay off my credit cards now. I can take a breath. Like now it's kind of sustainable. And then, year 4 and 5, I think it was 2020 and 2021, and just we timing wise got lucky then with a refi boom and a purchase boom at this consecutive, at the same time. So that was lucky in terms of timing, but
that's good. Yeah. Well, I kind of jump into my career a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, I was going to start asking you questions about that. So tell me, like, what about you? I mean, let's go back to high school.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm a pretty impressionable person. Like, for me, I went to a low-income high school. I don't think we had the best schools. I mean, a lot of people were successful coming from Benson High School. I just felt like I didn't have a direction. I was a manufacturing major in high school because it was
Benson was the technical.
Yeah,
that's where it's like supposed to put you on a technical track.
Yeah, I knew there's technical or health directed, and I don't like blood, so it was easy for me to choose. Like, I'm going to go the technical route, and there's a good amount of options that I wasn't interested in. Honestly, I didn't know what I was interested in, and manufacturing I just knew was probably the easiest. The teacher basically was mostly absent, and I can skip a lot.
Well, that's a good point. Like, how do you choose that so young? Like, and I think that's sort of some of the failure. Like, it's good to have an idea of what you want to do, but again, like you might be in a career that you've never heard of or that might not even exist.
I mean, all I knew is that, like in manufacturing specifically, I did not think I was going to be a laborer. I knew I was a smart kid. I was always good at school. Even if I didn't have to try that hard, I wanted to be a cool kid and go out and party and do all that stuff. But school was really easy for me, and I wanted to make it as easy as possible. I didn't think I had the setup in my high school to basically steer me towards where I wanted to be.
Okay.
So like I said, I was basically clueless.
So you just chose manufacturing because you thought it would.
Oh, I was 16 years old when I chose
because
that.
your family did manufacturing stuff?
No, it was easy. I like working with my hands. It's kind of a fun class. You get to play with lathes and like I built like a jack for a car, a bunch of woodworking things. So it was fun. And getting through that, like all I want to do is get good enough grades to get into a good school. My dad was basically Stanford or bust. And I was like, Dad, I do not have the grades for Stanford. He was like, you go to Stanford or you go to PCC, which is Portland Community College, and you take over the business. And my parents had the bean sprout business, and I was like, I am not growing fucking bean sprouts. So, I got into U of O and OSU full ride.
That's so interesting, though, like how you say that your dad was like super. He's like, you got to do this or that.
Oh, also what he said
was that common for a lot of your friends too?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like the high standards of like my cousin's son, he got into Harvard. What are you doing? That whole sort of thing. And like I said, I liked to party and drink when I was like 17 years old.
Yeah, I feel like that's very common for like your parents are first generation, right? And they're very insistent on that. Whereas like my dad's the kind of second generation, so he was always just like, okay, like I wish I had that. Okay, like just do it well.
And this is the thing I know about me since I was little. I have always had a high risk tolerance. So like as I mentioned, I got to U of O basically automatically, OSU full automatically because they're in state. I hit the the GPA whatever, and they gave me a full ride, and I was like, okay, cool, but it's, and I always had aspirations of something bigger. I didn't know what bigger was. I just wanted to leave, and I definitely didn't want to go to Eugene. which I had never visited. And not to hate on Eugene because I had never been, but all I knew was a smaller city, and Corvallis was an even smaller city, and so
Even though, like, weren't most of your friends going there?
yeah, they were, and honestly, I just felt like I wanted something bigger, something new.
You wanted to get out of.
Yeah.
You wanted to move beyond.
Yeah, and I had no strong reasoning other than I need to go to the big city. And I guess the biggest city I could think of was Seattle because it's like 3 hours away.
Close, yeah.
Yeah, I visited a friend up there and liked the campus and everything. I was like, I'm going to apply here. This is the feeling that I want to feel. But I did not get any money to go there. I got in.
Yeah.
But I had to pay full out of state. And so I just went. And I had to convince my dad for a long time that this is a really good school. I knew how competitive it was to get into the University of Washington. I definitely did not have great grades.
Right.
I had decent test scores, decent SATs, all this stuff. But as I mentioned, I like to drink and party, and skip school a lot.
So you weren't attracted to the university for its programs at all.
I didn't know what their programs
just
were.
going to the big city. Yeah.
I didn't know what their programs were, and honestly, all I ever heard, and this is a common Asian family thing, but it's doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Right.
Wait, doctor, lawyer, engineer, or business.
Right.
And so, I mean, my initial goal was business, going to business school. Like that's, all I could think about. I didn't know anything about engineering. It sounded hard, and
Well, your parents were entrepreneurs too, so.
yeah, and they always emphasize business ownership, and I just didn't know enough about. Like I said, one, I didn't want to be a doctor because I don't like blood. Two, I don't know what an engineer really does. I was good at math, but I just didn't have any guidance towards that role. And lawyer sounded really boring, reading lots of text or whatever. So business seemed like the obvious way to go. And I'll say this: it wasn't like I was a very impressionable kid, and I had a group of friends from Portland that I lived with. Who eventually, they didn't get into business school, the undergrad business school, once I was up there and I started studying. And, I basically got convinced that it was too hard to get into. I didn't even try. And so I went down a lot of different routes. I was working like 4 jobs at the time, just trying to, like I said, pay off as much of my loans as possible, pay for my living. And so I went into sociology based on a recommendation from one of my bosses for my work study program, because I was working at a preschool doing basically helping inner city kids with preschool. And so he told me that sociology was what he did at Yale, and he loves his career, and I was thinking I'm going to have a life of service, and I went down the sociology route for a little bit, and kind of gave up the idea, like, okay, I've always wanted to make a lot of money because young kid, whatever, but maybe I can do this. And, I took all those classes for sociology. And with anything, you're going to take classes that just are not helpful or just not interesting or things you want to do. And I learned a lot from sociology. But at some point, I just decided, like, this is just not interesting to me. I don't know how much to say. Say better than that, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. Like, of course, I want to do service in one way or another, but it just wasn't the direction I wanted to go. And, I had some falling out with my friends at that point. Things were getting really stressful with me working so much. I think I was working 60 hours a week while going to school full time, doing sociology. And, obviously the falling out was just differences in lifestyle, all this stuff. And like I said, they all told me business school is too hard. We all didn't get in, and you're not. It's just too tough. Basically, I was told even by my ex-girlfriends, like, yeah, you're not going to get in. It's super hard. And like I said, with that fallout, and I will say this: I am a spiteful asshole. Once I was moved out and living by myself and trying to figure my life out, I was like, I'm gonna get in motherfucking business school, and like I had no goal other than I'm gonna get in. And so I spent a year to get, I spent my junior year getting into business school. It's usually a 2-year program. Try to figure out which basically field in business school can I do so I can complete my, not my diploma, is it a diploma?
Yeah,
my degree. How can
so
I?
you had to pick a specific
I had to
field, subfield within the business school?
Exactly. It could be accounting, could be marketing, could be a variety of things. And I wanted to pick the one that would help me graduate on time.
Okay.
I got in literally the end of my junior year. So to graduate on time, I would have to take summer classes and then a full year of classes. So.
Yeah. And what was what made it so hard to get in business school? Was it just passing an exam, or was it a big multifaceted application?
So you have to take the prerequisite classes,
Right.
Econ 101, microeconomics,
Yeah.
macroeconomics, math, etc. You have to get decent grades on those, and then there's the essay portion.
Okay.
And
what was your GPA at the time?
I think it was like 3.3. Honestly, my GPA was completely flat from high school to college.
Okay.
Still like to party
Yeah.
and have a good time. But
Solid.
it was solid. Like I felt pretty good about it. I was like I said, I don't feel bad about it because I was working 60 hours a week for three years straight in college. So like for me, 3.3 while working at Fred Meyer's and working at a preschool, 3 preschools at once.
Yeah, didn't you graduate with no debt?
No. So what happened was I worked so much the first 2 years, and I kept all my pay stubs. I knew if you can prove to the university that you moved there for non-educational purposes, they'll give you in-state tuition. So the first 2 years I pay out of state, which added up to about $50,000.
Okay.
And by my end of my sophomore year, I turned in all my pay stubs. And they're like, yeah, you're definitely here. You work 60 hours a week. You didn't have to prove it that hard. Yeah. I had a stack of pay stubs this high. They didn't even look through it. They're like, yeah, you're approved. You're in state now, whatever. I was like, okay. And the thing was, so my FAFSA with my parents, FAFSA is the application you fill out when you do your financial aid. It was 0 anyways. And now that I was fully independent on my own, it was like basically negative. Like I'm a kid working at Fred Meyer's making $10 an hour.
Right.
And so they ended up giving me something called the Husky Promise, which is basically a scholarship for kids who are low income.
Right.
So I literally had my full tuition paid for, and then a little bit money for living every single year or so. And honestly, that was kind of a bad thing. Not a bad thing. That's not gonna say this, but it gave me a little bit more freedom to kind of drink and party more.
Well, I mean, you worked for it.
I did work. I worked for it. Like I said, it was a lucky break for me. But I spent I took a break. Obviously, got my degree, and ended up hanging out with my friends and having a good time, and kind of lost that fire a little bit inside of me, and didn't know what I was going to do after getting my business degree in entrepreneurship and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent the summer looking for jobs, and I wanted to stay in Seattle. And
what year was that?
2010.
Okay.
Yeah. Spent the summer looking for jobs. I didn't know if I was going to stay in Seattle.
Economy was kind of recovering at that time still.
Yeah, and I just had no idea what I was going to do. And I'll be completely honest, business school did not teach me much. If I were to say,
it's more theory, right?
Yeah, it's more theory. Like
it's more learning how to learn, which is important, but it's not.
Yeah, like I said, I'll say this. I wish I had a class on Excel because that's what I really needed. Right. I could tell you what a SWOT analysis is, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, but you never really do that unless you're like an executive level marketer or whatever. And I don't even think they do that. It's just so academic.
It's more about the theory behind it and the thinking behind it and the ability to reason, right?
Yeah.
In a higher way.
Exactly. So, I took an internship at Alibaba. I just one of the opportunities that I found online. They interviewed me on I don't know if it was Zoom, some kind of video conference.
WebEx or something.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm very impulsive. I'm very, high risk tolerance. So I was like, all right, well, I had my adventure in Seattle. I'm good here. I'm not going back to Portland. I need something bigger. And so I took my opportunity down the Bay Area and just never been there before. Literally, had only been to LA. So
again, the big city draw, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I just assumed the Bay Area was an extension of LA. That's how naive I was as a kid, just never leaving my area really. Only visiting family in LA, whether I flew over or drove through it. It's just like, isn't all of California Los Angeles? Yeah, and like I said, me getting into tech or the tech world was completely on accident, just taking a job down in the Bay Area, which if you were to ask me now, I definitely consider myself Bay Area. That's the energy that I have, in terms of the goals and the goals and energy that I have in my career.
Yeah, I mean, you still work with those guys.
Yeah, exactly. And, went down there, worked in marketing. Like I said, I hit a wall right away as a fresh out of college kid with a business degree. They threw me in marketing. I was supposed to do social media marketing because social media was still new. They gave me a Twitter account for AliExpress and the Facebook, and we were doing all these campaigns that led to nothing. Like, it was absolutely terrible. And so, like, literally 2-3 weeks into doing that, they're like, okay, we're throwing him into SEM, SEO, or SEM. They basically paid advertising on Google and Yahoo and all these things. And I'll say this: I had a mean ass boss, and he like basically chided me on how little I knew about Excel. Like, I basically had never touched Excel, even though, I mean, I did accounting class, but you don't really do formulas. You don't do anything. I'm dealing with 1 million keywords we're paying for. We're spending $100,000 a day, and I don't know how to do Excel. So I basically had to get a crash course. And I was like, I'm a marketer. I might not.
I'm an intern. Isn't that what I'm here for? To teach me how to do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not supposed to do creative things like write copy and do fancy things and make nice, like display ads and all this stuff. They're like, no, we seriously do this. We do analysis. It's data analysis, and this is where you're going. And, I did that. And it was, I'm not going to say fun, but I was good at it. It was my start. And it was like, I finally have a skill that I can use. The internship ended. They basically, AliExpress was never a success in America. AliExpress is basically Alibaba's attempt to get into the American market, and they failed miserably because apparently Americans like quality. Quality over quantity, and you can get a bunch of rubber duckies from AliExpress, but not like one good ducky, basically, So going from there, I mean, I interviewed around, quickly found a job at the Game Developers Conference as a marketing coordinator, like my first full career.
So how did that job change work? You found it through a friend of a friend, or you went to some conference, or
I mean, honestly, I don't remember. It was probably LinkedIn or just searching around for jobs. I didn't really still.
It wasn't a face-to-face connection. It was more of a
just job searching.
Just more searching. You were just applying.
Yeah, I was just applying. 22 years old, looking for my first real job. Had some marketing experience. Had some nice things to put on my resume about my marketing career, and did that. And
I've never applied for a job.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's what you do. You just look. Do I like this thing? And it was it was in the city because I was working in Santa Clara down in the South Bay, and now I was like, okay, opportunity to work in San Francisco, low pay, but get a start in marketing, and I just kind of went for it. It was great experience. I was doing event planning, doing lots of the creative marketing that I wanted to do. Like, I was editing the newsletter, doing all this stuff. Never really touched code or anything, and this is like an inkling for the future. That was that I'd be good at this, but it's like, hey, here's our newsletter. It's written in HTML. You want to edit some stuff? And
they were writing their newsletter in HTML. I guess this was back in the day, right?
It was. Yeah, I was like, hey, basically,
this was before WordPress.
Obviously, I was editing the text, but I was like, I can make this work. Like, I didn't have to send it to our engineer every time to do what I want to do. I was like, I could figure this out. I see how it works. This link goes here, so I'm gonna put the link in. I need to close off that link. Blah blah blah. HTML, easy. Just figured it out.
Wait, did you use DOS when you were a kid?
No, I was not.
You were in that.
The only my only coding experience was AsianAvenue.com. Okay. Building out my profile, putting music on there, stuff like that. And honestly, it was just copy and paste and that didn't work. I'll erase some stuff. But just honestly, figuring things out was kind of just my jam. So I kind of did a little bit of everything there. Obviously, I was working with game developers, and it was really cool. I loved games, and it kind of got into the game culture, all this stuff. Did that for maybe a year and a half, and the pattern for me is before my last job, I had never done a job for more than a year and a half.
And I think there's some value to that. Like, they say that there's a lot of value in loyalty, and I think it's important to be loyal to your family, your friends, and especially yourself. But I would say that if you look empirically, at people that move jobs,
Yeah.
typically they end up getting paid more.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because if you just stay at one corporate job your whole life, what incentive do they have to, like, raise your... I mean, they should pay you more if you're performing really well, but, like, most of the time you leverage a raise by going somewhere else, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's ridiculous. Like, the Game Developers Conference was owned by this big, gigantic firm. I think it was UBM, United Business Media, which is the most corporate, generic-sounding company ever. And they gave me my raise after my first year, and it was like I thought it was like 2 or 3%. It's like, oh, we gave you higher than what most people get. Like, this is normal for us. It's like your general rent raise versus, like, getting somebody at market rate. And so, like I said, I moved my career a lot, and I won't tell you how many jobs I've had in marketing, but I had a lot, and I kept jumping around, kept getting big jumps in salary, kept getting new experiences in that, learning so many different things, like super small startup, literally doing everything from making videos to all this crazy
That's
stuff.
another point, is that you build more skill sets too when you work at different companies. Yeah,
exactly. And then I joined, basically a tech startup unicorn, and I felt really good at my career, and I was getting the promotions and all this stuff. And like I said, I was starting getting a little cocky in marketing. Like, I was really good at my job. It was so easy for me to do it. I was getting, like at this point, 3 years in, like $75,000. Just became like assistant manager in marketing, and I got my first big jump in salary with my next job, where I joined a real startup that needed an actual marketer, and this is where things get a little dark. I got my first 6-figure job. I went from $75,000 to $100,000, and I was so excited. And I basically felt like the other companies, I kind of laid out marketing to make it really easy for me. And here's a brand new startup that maybe wasn't so established and needed somebody who was willing to kind of craft that message.
A real brand.
Yeah, they needed
everything.
More strategy, more things. Like, I had great mentors with everything before, and here's my first, and not saying that I didn't have great mentors at this job, it was just the first time I was challenged in my career, in a way that, like I said, and this is the worst thing about putting your self-worth in your job, is like when you start not doing well, it like can really affect your mental health. And really, really quickly, like I would say within a month and a half of like, yeah, you're supposed to ramp up and figure out, I started to realize, like, I'm not good at this. And, when I'm not good at things, and, this is common, I really get stressed out. And I started shaking, not being able to do work, because in my head, I was like, if I do the work, I'm going to mess up. It's basically, I felt frozen.
Right.
Like, if I do something, I'll mess up and I'll get yelled at. If I don't do anything, then I'm not getting work done. And I literally was just stuck in this place. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I was so stressed out. And honestly, the work started to notice. I got my first performance improvement plan. I felt, like I said, and I can't blame the company for, what role they put me in and the skill set that was required there. I don't think I was set up to fail. Somebody who was actually good at this job probably would have done a lot better. I was display advertising, and we were trying to get engineers on our platform to be hired. And I personally felt like these people don't click on banner ads. Right. I don't know. That could be completely false. But I wasn't succeeding versus some of the other people on my marketing team who had other channels, like search engine optimization or search engine marketing, et cetera. My paid attempts were just plummeting, and I was not doing well. And they're to the point where I had to see a therapist. I was like, is marketing for me? This is what I thought I was good at this.
Right.
I just hit 6 figures. Why am I struggling so hard?
Yeah, sometimes it's like you don't have that ability or space to fail, right? Because so much of you put so much worth on whether or not you're doing the good job, and if you feel like you're not doing the job perfect, then yeah, you got to give yourself space to fail, right?
Yeah, and so I had to think, like, I only know marketing. What else can I do? And it's funny because I had 2 options in my head, and I'm still on the performance improvement plan, or was about to be. I was either going to go to culinary school, It's funny, you know, because I love, like I said, I love chef culture and watching all that stuff, and was willing to grind and thought I was entrepreneurial enough to do something great. Or I was going to go to a software boot camp, because a lot of my friends had done it, had done very well, got really good paying jobs, and started startups and did all this stuff. Did my vetting, and like I said, I put my head down and I studied really hard to learn how to do the base amount of coding, because you have to still apply to the program and then pay them $20,000 to get in. And I was studying at night because I wasn't sleeping at all, and doing really poorly at my job. And I remember the moment I got the email after doing my video test, because I thought I bombed it, that I'd gotten in. And I literally cheered at my desk at work. All the stress had fallen off from that, because I was like, okay, the next part of my journey is starting. And yeah, I mean, like I said, the next month I kind of just did nothing at work. I was like, I need to make some money. I'm gonna quit at the end of the month, or when I come back from winter break, going home to Portland, because I have enough money to hold me over till I get to the boot camp and throughout.
Right.
And it's funny because this is great happenstance, but obviously I wasn't doing very well at my job. I wasn't doing the work. I actually literally just stopped doing it. I was like, I don't give a fuck.
Right.
And came back. The day I was going to put my 2 weeks notice was the day I got my notice to leave. And they paid me the 2 weeks.
You get your severance bonus.
Yeah, severance of 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Because now, not only did I not have to quit, but I got fired and I got my severance of the 2 weeks that I wanted anyways. I didn't have to stay there for 2 more weeks. And, obviously I got unemployment. So that helped me get through my program. And I realized, I'm pretty good at this coding thing. And I won't go into the details of the coding boot camp, but, very quickly after I finished that and put all my eggs in that basket, went to class 9 a.m. till midnight every day, rented out my room in San Francisco, and I slept in the living room so I could save on rent.
Amazing.
Meal prepped everything.
So resourceful.
My meals were under $2 a piece. Fried rice and some meat and just really simple stuff. Just meal prep everything so I could save as much money as possible. Got a significant pay raise with my software engineering role. And
right away, right out of the boot camp, you got an offer?
I would say like a month and a half.
And how did you find the job? Just through applying for random jobs?
Yeah, just applying to a million jobs. And like I said, this is the thing. Like in anything, networking is very, very key. We had our group of students who all graduated at the same time. We all talked to each other about our experiences. And one of my classmates had gone through the interview process at Future Advisor, the company I wanted to apply to, and they had everything that I wanted, the salary I wanted, and he basically let me know, like, this is kind of what the interview process is like. So I made sure to focus, put my head down, and just study those specifics, and I got the job, and like I said, thank God I talked to that guy, because I don't know if I would have gotten the interview or gotten the job. I already interviewed like 5 or 6 companies at that point. I don't think I would have got that job if I didn't talk or make sure to reach out to my classmates. Right. And that's the thing about learning to be, rather you'd be introverted, because I'm introverted, versus extroverted. I had to force myself to hey guys, what are you guys doing?
Right.
Sometimes you just have to ask and things will come.
I was going to say, I was making the joke that I've never applied for a job, but the first cooking job I got, always I just talked my way into that.
Exactly.
Or the job at Pele's, I had to I had to do a working interview.
Yeah.
Where they make you prove your skills or whatever. But all of when I worked at the other job, that it was someone I'd worked with before, and he's like, hey, you come take this job. And then when I came to get into finance, I just called my loan officer that did my loan, and she's like, oh, talk to my manager. Just talk the way in. I never interviewed. I've never done
you don't want
I've never filled out an application before.
It sucks. Don't worry.
But to your point, I've always overvalued networking, because I've always felt that was a soft skill that I could take advantage of. But I think,
I would say this,
super useful when you're switching careers.
Useful switching careers, useful in everything. I mean, sometimes, like I said, even in my real estate world, whether it's investing or as a realtor, sometimes you just got to ask or put yourself out there. And, like I said, people always say I'm lucky. And I never think I'm lucky. I think I'm just as lucky as everyone else. I just put myself for more opportunities for luck.
You got to put yourself in the position. Yeah.
If you don't ask for it, you're never gonna get it. You know what I mean? Or like people don't just put things out in front of you just because. And because I asked, like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys interviewing? What, you know, like whatever. And I found the guy who just said, I just bombed this interview. I really like the company, and I had him tell me everything about it. Had everything I wanted: catered lunches, beer keg, kombucha in a on tap, basically all the breakfast stuff you want. Like I made a smoked salmon sandwich every single morning.
Nice.
All the sparkling water in the world that you could want. And like I said, I felt great. I was happy. Startup, good times, good money. Wasn't too hard. I loved the product. Was passionate. Yeah, I mean, I was happy. Let's just say that. And I even had to move. Even when I had to move back to Portland to take care of my family situation with them losing their property and everything, I was still like just chilling, just making my salary kept going up faster than I could have ever imagined, and I was super happy with it.
What caused the shift? At what point was engineering no longer the thing?
So I joined the company literally like maybe a month after acquisition. So they were acquired by BlackRock, major Wall Street firm, world's largest money manager, manages $13 trillion, all this, BS. They destroyed our culture. All my coworkers who I loved and I still keep in contact with, they all decided to leave for better pastures. BlackRock culture was starting to sneak in. Like I said, they're Wall Street, we're tech. It didn't exactly mesh. They started, and like I said, this is going to sound like I'm extremely spoiled, but I started noticing little things like, okay, our snacks are just not as good in the kitchen. And every Monday we have falafel. We used to get laksa. We used to get pho. We used to get all the good stuff. And now it's like every single Monday is falafel. And, at this point, soon after I went home and I was like, well, I'm not getting any of that stuff anyways. I don't know. This is 2018. Nobody's really doing remote then yet. So I was like, I'm happy to hold on to this job. But like I said, getting none of the perks and getting that culture coming in, this culture sneak, and them taking things away really started to grind at my gears. Them telling me what to do, and I hate being told what to do. Before I was, maybe more of a product decision maker, and now they're like throwing me onto products that I could care less about. So it just got really stressful, and I just started quitting. Like I knew I had reserves. I made a good amount of money, and it's just kind of holding on to it. Now obviously I bought my fourplex, and like I said, like it's one of those things where you start seeing the opportunities elsewhere. And I started seeing my fourplex, and like you could hear more about the fourplex or the other properties I bought, but that property went up $130,000 in a year, and I dropped my payments like X amount, and my taxes were lower, and all these things. And honestly, I did a little bit of overlap with real estate investing and my software engineering career, and I was like, I started making a couple $100,000 in real estate, in equity, and started making lots of cash flow, not paying taxes, even saving taxes on my W-2 job. And I was like, why am I doing both? And I whittled my job down to 6 hours a week. And yes, I was holding on to that salary, but I was so incredibly stressed. I was making the most money I'd ever made ever, and got my real estate license, and I was literally doing that while renovating, while being a software engineer, and I was not happy,
Just too much on the plate.
Yeah, and like I said, I was dearly hanging on. 6 hours a week, high six-figure job, every single Sunday, knowing that I was stressed out of my mind, knowing I had a stand-up meeting the next day.
Yeah,
to talk about nothing I did.
but ultimately, I think more than the multiple jobs, it was more the kind of that corporate overlord.
Oh yeah, I absolutely, like I said, I could talk shit about corporate.
Because now, I mean, you're back in the tech world again, right? You're working on a project.
Yeah. I mean, I got a little,
an undisclosed project,
undisclosed stealth project, but
you, I mean, because you like the engineering.
I do love to. I still love to code.
You like the coding. You like that. You like building. You like the business aspect of it. But it's more. But you're coming into it as an owner at this point, and a as an investor.
Yeah.
As well as a producer. So it's kind of you don't have that, that corporate overlord. So it's
exactly
different.
Like I said. I would give a lot of money to not work for, a corporate company telling me exactly what to do, how to do this. You have to work on this project that you don't care about. Like I said, nice happenstance with my first tech company before it got absorbed was that I loved the product, I loved the people, and I would work on it willingly, very happily. Like it just, that, I'm not gonna say that kind of happens kind of rarely in that world. I was completely happy, and to be put on other things that I did not care for, and just doing it for the money was not fun. So, that's why I was able to make that jump. Like as soon as I wasn't able to refinance for one of my properties, even though I had that nice W-2 job, did some stuff with my taxes that probably didn't help. I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm over it. I quit, and I just kind of left it. And at that point, I had been doing real estate just okay, not anywhere near a living amount, but I just had to bet on myself. And I had cash flow at this point. I had money coming in. I wouldn't say it fully covered my expenses, but if I made just some money, I'd be okay. And like that's where I just wanted to bet on myself. And I've been doing it. I've had a great year. This is my first full year not being an engineer. I mean, though, like I said, I do have undisclosed projects, but not anything that would interfere with my real estate. Just something that I love doing and building. And hopefully it takes off. But if not, it's fine. I'm enjoying that process. But I'm very happy to bet on myself, knowing that like my results are of my gain and that I did it.
Right.
So, yeah, and just, like I said, that's why we were able to make that jump, kind of just betting on ourselves. I mean, what would you tell the young people in terms of like doing that jump towards transitioning? Like,
yeah, I think like you said, you got to keep investing and betting on yourself. Like, if you want to make a career change or a switch, I think the first thing starts from learning, like reading books, you going to a boot camp, taking a real estate course, whatever it is. Like, I think it's important to, like really, like you said, keep investing in yourself and learning, to put yourself in that position where you feel like you can accept an opportunity. Of course, having savings is obviously helpful.
Yeah.
Continuing to focus and build skill sets, and because those skills and habits are always something that you can transfer to a new career. So leveraging that, just like really building those up, and also like I think loyalty, like I was saying earlier, is important, but don't like lose an opportunity. Like, you need to be loyal to yourself, right? I mean, you can change jobs and you can get a raise. You can change jobs and get bigger skills. Like,
yeah, like I said, it's not all gloom and doom. I feel like people are so flexible. Like, we should be able to do more than one thing. If one thing's not working for us, we will figure it out.
Right.
You have to have that belief in yourself. It's not always you're not gonna go from like having a job that you hate to just straight up homeless. Well, you can, but like.
You can be passionate about something, but like not have that as your career. And you could be passionate something and have it as your career. It just, I think the idea that there's like one career or one path for one person, it's kind of a fallacy.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that you can do. It's a matter of like putting your mind to it and finding joy and finding fulfillment in those things.
Yeah. So, I encourage people, like I said, I don't encourage everybody to go entrepreneurship. It might not be the right fit for them. Entrepreneurship or even a career switch, like I said, just take your time, think about your situation. But in terms of for entrepreneurship, like kind of really gauge like how ambitious and motivated are you really? Or is this just a pie in the sky idea? Are you going to be passionate about what you do as you mentioned?
Yeah, you have to like it. You have to, like you said, you have to be motivated. You got to be self-motivated. You don't have it sucks to have a corporate overlord, but it's also, there's some benefits to that because they tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And then it's very clear what you need to do.
Yeah. I'll say this about passion. Like I said, I've definitely done things that I thought I was passionate in. Maybe I just had pride in doing a good job, rather than, did I really love marketing?
Right.
No, I really didn't. And I was be honest, and that's not to hate on real estate. I love real estate in a sense where I'm an entrepreneur, but do I love houses? And I probably said this multiple times. Not really. I mean, like I like the asset.
You like the vehicle.
I like the vehicle in terms of how it builds us wealth. And I definitely love helping people. I love customer service more than I love real estate. Mm-hmm. So that's really where I get my passion from.
Right.
But you can do very well in things you're not passionate about, but it's probably going to be very short-lived.
Right.
You know?
Totally. Yeah. And again, like with entrepreneurship, I think it's just so important to be self-motivated.
Yeah.
You know, like you got to be able to get yourself, get yourself up in the morning. No one's telling you what to do, right? You got to be able to figure out your schedule. You got to.
Yeah.
You're your own boss.
I know. I mean, like I used to go play basketball 3 hours a day as a software engineer, and to switch to a job where I had to get up and, make my calls and do all these things and, show up to home inspections and sit there for 4 hours on the ground with no furniture. Like, it was just a little bit of a difference. You had to understand why you're doing it and obviously love what you're doing. And I mean, obviously there's pros and cons to everything that you do. So it's not too bad. Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks everybody for listening in on this. I hope you got a little bit more context in terms of who we are, what has happened in our life. It hasn't been all rosy and just smooth. And, we're definitely still looking for new guests. So if you know anybody who has had an interesting story in real estate, where there's in the industry as a realtor or a lender or real estate investing, we would love to have them. So, yeah.
Yeah, or an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks.